Okay.
There's a few record button.
We'll find out later. It says recording.
Okay, cool.
Let's go ahead.
That's the spyware recording.
Greg, you are the star right now, apparently.
Definitely. Congrats, you're doing the presentation.
Alright, so take it away. Alright, so presentation tonight is on the adapter and the facade patterns for transaction processing beyond. So a little background, like I said, I'm Ray from Salukro, actually an engineering manager now. Salukro, we're a payment facilitator for the healthcare industry. So that's what we do a lot of is processing transactions. We do things patient facing, things provider facing, and just that's our role. So with that, I know how to do this. So in the end, the adapter pattern, may have heard of it before, especially if you've ever heard of the Gang of Four, including from Martin Fowler, and I can't name the others from this. But the adapter pattern is really a good way to just adapt something. Think of like your USB adapters, how you can, as long as it has a USB port on it, you can take any old thing, whether it be slightly different interface or PS2 type interface, adapt it with an adapter. That's the hardware version of the adapter pattern. A good way of trying to utilize this is to abstract either some of your legacy interfaces, or if you're just trying to actually even interface some third-party type deal. It allows you to produce an interface that you can turn on and fulfill, and then as long as whatever you want behind the scenes is fulfilling that interface, it's going to do what you want it to do. PHP, as we all know, tends to be weakly typed, but nowadays you can get a little bit more strong typed interface out of it, whether it be directly from the interface or even some of the scalar types being passed in through it. Don't have much more to say about that. So jump into a code example for the adapter pattern here. So ultimately,
Definitely gotta zoom that
I can do this.
Yeah, for the code side, you can actually choose to zoom.
Control plus.
Hey,
in.
Okay. But it's only for that one window, right?
yeah, it's only for that one
Alright,
window.
that's
That's the
That's
important
good.
one.
Yeah.
So overall, we have just a jump.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, every single one.
Every single window. This is awesome. There's a presentation on it.
Try Command plus.
Just go to settings and then there's a font size and you can change it for the entire thing.
You do this.
There you go, nailed it.
Like it's
Here, we're just trying to, some very basic, a nice basic interface, kick off a notification, whether that be via email, Slack, Discord, whatever you want it to be. SMS through Twilio, which is all very valid things that we actually do. Now I need to be able to do my
Command one.
keyboard. Thank you. Oh, much easier. Until it's done presentation before. So as long as we have something that fulfills this interface, we can get some good concrete implementations, such as a nice email notification, and just because so I don't break code, because I don't have PHP actually installed on this laptop, I have this commented out. But in the end, ultimately, we are fulfilling the interface. It ideally would use the PHP mail function here to kick it out for as it's configured with the admin email to satisfy the mail function itself. Stay off of that, and then just because this is just some demo code, to be completely clear, I did steal this code example actually from refactoringguru.com. Nice little resource there. So yeah, that's what the purpose of this echo statement is just say, hey, it was sent. It would actually be better, in my opinion, to do a log, but hey, whatever, examples. The other one is, actually doing a Slack implementation with it. This is the actual implementation for Slack's to ultimately be their interface. Gotta actually be able to authenticate and then turn on and send a message for it, but then utilizing our Slack notification that's going through and actually implementing the interface, we can follow some good solid principles here, actually pass the implementation for Slack into it, along with a chat ID, because you need that for Slack for some reason. I don't use Slack and I've never programmed for it.
That's the channel.
Thank you, and you know it. And then ultimately, hey, back to the interface, that the notification, simple send, it will turn around, actually do the login for Slack, and then get the message across the appropriate channel that you had this configured up for. And then, not exit presentation mode. And then just command one, just actually putting this together. And one, go away. So quick little implementation for it. Got some general client code of what you may end up using this for, and depending on what notification implementation you actually pass into it, it's real simple. You don't care what is being implemented under the hood. You just know, hey, you gotta send that the site's down, get everyone on board. Hopefully you're not the one actually doing this, and this some DevOps is doing for you instead, and fixing it too. But ultimately, we have one quick implementation here. If it was done with email, quick instantiation of that email notification class we got going on. Hit that function, pass it off, everything works. Same thing goes with the Slack burner. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually run this down below here. And as we can see, I guess I can split this up just to see the echoes, because I don't even remember what it's supposed to be echoing out. Hey, we got our first message about the client code, design as it says here, and then for the actual email notification, as implemented by that class, we see, hey, it's being sent with the title to who it was and what the actual message body is, and then if it would have been done via Slack, we have that implementation, hey, I'm posting the message into the place with the with what the actual alert is for its implementation. So pretty straightforward. If you didn't know about this pattern before, you most likely have implemented it without actually ever knowing it. But that's what you can call the adapter pattern.
So on 32, when you initialized the Slack notification, you had to give it that special parameter that wasn't needed by the email notification.
So it's your constructor here. So this constructor is asking for an implementation of the Slack API and the string.
So the only thing we're guaranteed with that notification trait is to have the send function.
I don't have
The
a trait.
Interface.
Yeah.
Interface, yeah.
So I could put it in a Laravel context, but your container, you have the Slack
Facade.
the Slack adapter configured, and you'd also have the email notification adapter configured in your container, and then you can, with a config, you could switch between the two, and you wouldn't have to change your code at all.
I didn't plan on doing live coding demonstration, but say you need it's an alert for, hey, website's down. SMS is probably a good thing for that. Not extends, I'm on implements. So we did some basic SMS type notification.
In general, is it a good idea to try and take that with dependency injection so that all the constructors can be the same as well, and then the person?
No, the constructors are definitely gonna vary.
Because with Slack, you need the entire implementation for how do you actually communicate out to Slack. Or email is real simple, you may need to know who you're sending it to right away, since it's an alert type deal.
Yes, you have a container configuration for each adapter that you support, but then in the actual code where it gets used, that never changes when you switch between the implementations.
Yeah.
You
It
just-
goes pretty well with the factory.
For example, when you if you have in Slack, you need it shows your API key, you need that to authenticate with Slack, but if you're doing email, maybe you need your username and password for your SFTP
Right.
server, so they're all gonna be constructed differently. So the constructors will vary from adapter to adapter, but then their implemented interfaces will all be the same, so you can do the same.
Okay, and it'll just use the context that you stored from the constructor to figure
Yeah.
out the channel and everything.
With the factory, you might pass in a git notifier passing in user preferences.
Yep.
And then the user preferences would go through that, and you'd have logic to instantiate your adapter and pass it back, and then you would call the send function on.
Does C# do function overloading? Forget.
What
C sharp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so on PHP, the only thing that supports method overloading is constructor.
Oh, yeah.
So-
No, you can, no, yeah, it's the only one, isn't it? You can't do it on actual methods.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why
I think it's
like
like
the
that.
interface is like, that's it, like that's your only option. So like with the constructors where all the variability happens with the setup.
Yeah, that obviously nothing behind the scenes, so this code's not gonna work, but yeah, tooling implementation, if I'm trying to think of something simpler or more complex, but I can't.
You could do it for like, say you had different display surfaces, like a printer and a monitor, and you passed in a series of shapes that had, this isn't how you would really implement it, but they all had a draw function implemented on them. Actually, that kind of thing is usually implemented with a visitor pattern, but an adapter is kind of part of the visitor pattern.
So when you're doing that,
There's an overlap on a lot of patterns.
Yeah. The visitor pattern actually is crazy complex. I actually worked on some, a project that was a green screen project. And it takes a lot of cognitive thought to properly implement the visitor
Yeah,
pattern.
anything doing tree traversal.
Anything but what?
Tree traversal.
Recursion. Invert that binary
You
tree.
could have like a logging, you could easily have like a logging, like adapter here and like,
Oh, yeah.
so just like,
file or
yeah, so like if you
yeah.
hit send, it would just log, so then when you're testing environments, you just log it instead of actually sending notifications.
Yeah, that's actually a really common
Yeah.
type of thing is to have like a test version or what do you call it?
Like a mock,
Yeah,
a mock
fake or
or
a mock. Same type of thing.
Yeah, in Laravel, we call them drivers, so you can swap out your like log driver or
Yeah.
whatever.
So I would say the driver pattern and the adapter pattern are pretty much the same thing.
Right, exactly.
And we can control those like with our ENV file and stuff, so we have different environments for adding stuff to different services.
And if you've ever heard coding to an interface, this is what you do.
Good questions as always, Adam. Alright, so that's the adapter pattern. Now let's take a look at the facade pattern. Telling you, it's gonna look very, very familiar.
Yeah, so.
Let's get rid of these examples. Golang, anyone? Golang? No?
Oh, yeah.
Next up, facade pattern. Again, Martin Fowler definitely knows him and his entire gang know what they're talking about occasionally, most of the time. So we got the facade pattern coming up next. Very similar to the facade pattern, or to the adapter pattern. The facade pattern is another one of those structural design patterns. There's the structural patterns, you got your behavioral patterns, and you have your, what's the third
Creation.
bucket? Creation. Thank you. But in the end, a facade is it's a good way to have an interface there and hide a lot of complexities of what's going on under the hood. Think of your car when you're driving it, whether it be electric or hybrid or gas. You push gas pedal, car goes forward as long as it's in a gear to go forward. So there's a lot more going on under the hood with whether that be electric or sorry, I like cars. Even older cars versus newer cars, they have what's called drive-by-wire, or it's just a simple potentiometer remote basically, and it's automatically determining how much throttle it can really do to have it optimize to have it for optimal actual acceleration for what you're commanding to it, and it will you still accelerate, it just helps you out a lot more and be more efficient for the environment or something. But with the the facade pattern, like I was saying, interface to hide those complexities. You get back with the adapter pattern with the email example. We know with email, there's a lot more things going on under if it wasn't for the mail function inside of PHP, or if you turn around and swap that out with something else. But if this is a good way that maybe even for a junior, an entry level type of programmer or engineer, you give them hey, I'm going to produce this interface, you hit it, I'll handle the hard pieces going on behind it with some of our business logic, or that's what you're doing behind the scenes is you have a service with the nerd team and their service, your interface for them is to hide a lot of that complexity. It's kind of be a black box, so anyone that's using it can just use it. You're handling all the nitty-gritty details and insert it into this database table first, and then get that ID and insert it over here, do some other business logic to manipulate it because it makes sense, and add complexity, through and through. Again, another good way when it comes to legacy systems to try to start stepping away and hiding some of what's going on underneath the hood for trying to onboard someone, if you can actually get the time to go through and refactor and start stepping in the right direction. Just go ahead and some implementations with the side here. Get some fun times going on with the YouTube. Actually, I'm going to jump over into an actual implementation. So, who doesn't like to download videos?
What?
Download a movie.
Download a PowerPoint, totally could. Possible here in the next couple years. Again, another quick, easy implementation. Got our basic, whatever code's got going on to get to this point in time, and ultimately here we're download a movie from YouTube. And the actual implementation of it got to this point, hey, we know we just need a link. It came from a refactoring guru for that YouTube. Hopefully it's not a rickroll. I'm not going to test that out. But hey, go download video. It looks pretty simple. This is going to handle. I know I call this. It's going to download the video. Why is it not returning something to at least say where it downloaded it to? Whatever. It could be part of the constructor for where it goes. It knows. Hey,
Is there
you call it.
is there a second argument we can't see?
No, we're all the way there.
Alright.
So, implementation, get that API key into the YouTube downloader, we instantiate it, and we just pass it into that function to go ahead and do its work. Seems easy, but let's really dig down into it. So, good constructor, passing the key, and I personally would call this bad, but it's also okay at the same time. We could argue about this later. I would have said you want to pass this in, but it's a facade, so you're abstracting some things underneath the hood. You got this FFmpeg class that's going to do something for us. We actually get down into calling the download of the video, and first thing it's going to do is let's go get the title from the YouTube implementation. What's this song coming out? No, you stay uncommon. Maybe because half these methods aren't actually implemented.
So it does a lot of things.
But this is the beauty of the facade pattern. Hey, downloading the video, it's not easy to go through and do that programmatically. In any way, shape, or form. But here got the implementation of this YouTube class to go through, fetch the title, to go get the video, and then there's another method off to actually get the title from it. And hey, how are we going to save it? We didn't programmatically pass in what we want to save it as, or just video MPEG. So you can try to download an entire YouTube, you're going to end up with the last thing you got. And then YouTube is encoded in a certain fashion. We need to go ahead with using this FFmpeg class, actually go through, open it up, do some work on it to actually get a return value out of it, which is because it's a void, so it really doesn't do anything. But it gets
Details.
Yeah. I'm
Pretend like it
Salesforce
works.
person. Yes, yes, this will totally work, and buy it now. We'll have it delivered to you in 2 weeks. Next year. But again, hey, going down through, doing some more things, you know, this is normalizing, resizing video, and whenever actually go through and actually deal with like taking a video that you have legally obtained and taking it from a DVD and then trying to encode it down into an optimized format at all, just curious.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah, actually worked at Turner, and we had our commercials delivered to an FTP server in like some completely raw format.
Oh, man.
And implemented a processor that would go through and encode it various ways for iPhone or for whatever, and push it through a QA process.
Nice.
But awesome. So as we know, it's not everything's easy, even though on the surface the product says, hey, I want to do this one thing. Well, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and that's a good example for the actual facade pattern. I guess I get in this MPEG class.
Essentially, it's when it's simple to say, I wanna fetch a video.
Yeah.
And it's, and being able to write code that just says fetch video from this URL, like that's an easy thing to do. The actual details of how to do that are complex, and this hides it behind
Yeah.
that
So
facade.
most third-party libraries, especially ones that interact with like services and kind of those.
Like AWS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all pretty much facades.
Yeah.
Yeah, any SDK that you work with tends to be that way, or doesn't even have to be code. If you think of it at a higher level, you go to, I keep going back to Twilio for, I don't know why. Twilio, hey, you need to send SMS. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes there. With them, you hit their interface and you kick them a couple of details, who it's going to, and hey, that text message gets sent out, whether it be via the old school way of knowing Verizon.com, knowing Verizon's email address to send it through and how to get it to go out, or actually doing it through an SMS. I used to know the details for some reason, and I don't know anymore. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
So it would disqualify any kind of API from being a facade.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What would disqualify any kind of interface you've got, like get movie with signature of a string in this case, or open, what would disqualify any of this from being a facade? What's not a facade? Because we're describing any.
It does seem kind of philosophical,
Any
as long as
API.
you're hiding complexity and decoupling interface.
In the end, this is nothing but the adapter pattern at the surface.
Not quite, but
So to me,
you
it is
can
in a sense.
build an adapter pattern. An adapter pattern can become a facade or
Yes,
like vice versa, but they kind of are just.
it's not A is B, but B is not A.
But yeah, but
Sort of.
if a facade is anything that hides complexity, then what's not a facade?
Right. Is there a technical
There-
answer?
So where's the gang when you need them?
It's just a name,
Yeah.
and it's naming that level of abstraction.
The intent of the facade is to hide complexity. What you define as complex, that's up to you.
How you hide it.
I
You-
mean, it's the object-oriented pack, so if it's an object and you're hiding complexity in that object, it's doing a bunch of things.
So simple functions are not facades.
I was thinking that it's function can be a
Oh, it
facade.
could be.
Yeah,
It depends on what.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess you would probably call it a different pattern.
Yeah.
Because
It's not.
facade does seem to imply object-oriented design.
Yeah.
It's an object with a signature or function.
Yeah.
umbrella term.
yeah, I mean, it almost is, yeah.
Could argue that with a lot of
Facade,
patterns.
check.
Yeah.
Also this.
Yeah.
I've called these classes orchestrators in the past. You've got a workflow that you're gonna do, and you just put it in your orchestrator, and then you call your orchestrator from other code.
How does this handle exceptions? Because if FFmpeg blows up and you get a fatal exception.
Almost, bro.
Oops.
Hold on, let me go add a big try catch in the,
The framework would handle it.
I mean, honestly, that's kind of,
Catch throwable.
that's not wrong, right? So like, something that's acting as a facade probably just has a big try-catch around everything it's doing. That's part of the facade, is like there's one exception that bubbles up, right?
Or lots of, yeah.
There could
lots of-
be, it just depends how you do it.
It works.
You can always access like the previous exception too.
Right, yeah.
I deal with bugs every day, and this is why I ask these questions.
But like that's part of how you can, like that's not a part of like the Gang of Four pattern necessarily, but part of creating a facade could be, you know, being very specific about what can be thrown out of it, so that you know what to catch.
Oh, you're only catching the global exception?
You just catch throwable,
Catch throwable.
handles everything. Why would you need more?
And then you write exit, oops.
No, that's what you do.
Will catch throwable give you something and catch backslash exception? Is one more, they're the same?
Throwable is just like, is anything throwable, it's the interface, the underlying interface of an exception.
So it could actually get more than backslash exception.
Yeah, there's throwable is the root, and then there's exception and error.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
How about error?
What's the difference between those two?
Error is like from the programming language, like it's the PHP's errors, and then exception is everything else.
Oh, so I won't accidentally catch like runtime errors then?
No, a runtime error is a subtype of a
Oh, it's
exception.
exception.
But yeah, depends.
They're all throwables.
But like
Yeah.
you could catch a type error if you catch throwable.
Right.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
So anything.
I don't know why you
would
would
be
wanna catch a
throwable.
type
Yeah.
error, but you could.
That should go.
I think Guzzle throws type errors.
I've never.
Oh, no, it's a pattern in Python, to catch type errors.
It just
Guzzle
depends,
has its
like,
own tree
it makes
of
you can do that.
exceptions, I know.
Yeah, don't mind it.
If you
Under
implement a lot of
exception.
No,
types.
it's, they all extend exception,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
got its own like client exception versus like
Yeah.
a server exception, they're
Yeah,
both,
watch exams.
they're both like request exceptions, and they have like response exceptions for like,
There's a lot of.
it's this whole tree of exceptions.
Were you working on Guzzle?
I was at some point,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what at some point.
Been a while.
It's used by the Gus SDK or you were trying?
We were working on Guzzle and the AWS SDK kind of in tandem with each other, so. The versions of the two libraries kind of did this.
That's fun. Yeah, he also did, he's really cracking into so some of the diagrams and examples that were within this slideshow itself actually came from these sources here. Used Refactor and Google myself as well to grab some of those PHP examples. But that is the
It was an
presentation.
MLS formatted citation, dude.
I'll just kick it through and adapter it.
Just kick it over to ChatGPT and have, ask it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
4 minute list